On this episode of Old School Monster Life, it's story time. Hey, welcome back. So we figured we'd kind of backpedal a little bit and tell you a little bit about the history of Shaker Racing and Earthquake Monster Truck and how far we've been able to come with very few resources. I guess I better start in the beginning. In 1998, I bought what was to become Earthquake number 1, and it was a 78 Ford F-150 four-wheel drive. And I put 10 inches of lift under it with 40s. I had a 400 335 series engine in it, C6 automatic. The truck worked really well. Ran through a lot of mud pits with it and almost got stuck a few times, but never got completely stuck. I had to work for it a few times, but the truck worked really well. Flash forward, I wanted to do something bigger. I wound up doing my first car crawl with Earthquake number 1, but it was a chore to get that done. You know, the truck wasn't really big enough, but we kind of coaxed it along with some logs next to the cars to get the front end up. But we got it done. We got a couple videos of it. I don't know if I have access to them anymore, but somewhere out there in the world there's videos of my first 2 car crushes with Earthquake number 1. Now, I wound up selling that truck because I wanted to go bigger. And comes Earthquake number 2. And a lot of people don't know this, but it was a dark time in Shaker Racing. Earthquake number 2 was a 76 Chevy. That's right, it was a square body Chevy. Well, that truck was too big to drive on the street, and it didn't really work all that well in the mud, so I didn't have it that long. I wound up selling it to a guy in Florida. And then Earthquake kind of fizzled out, and I joined the Army, and I always promised myself if there was ever an Earthquake 3, it would be a proper monster truck. Fast forward to 2013, I'm building a 64 Chevelle SS, and it's supposed to be like the car I had in high school, but no matter how much I copied the original car, no matter how much it looked exactly like it, it just was not the same car. So I wanted to get back into trucks again, and I was going to build Earthquake 3. Well, a guy had for sale a mega truck named Quadzilla, and he talked this truck up, and he had nice pictures of it when he had just finished building it. And I traded for that truck, the 64 Chevelle SS, a true SS car, for Quadzilla. And I said I didn't have a way to get it around, so he said, well, I'll drop it off to you. What he dropped off was a giant pile of broken parts. There wasn't anything usable on it. To this day, the only thing that's left of the original truck are the factory frame rails, the cab shell, and the bed floor. That's it. That's all that's left of the Quadzilla. Everything else got tossed in a scrap pile or sold off, and yeah, I just had to give up and cut it all apart and start over. Well, I had that truck about 2 years before I was able to do anything with it. Anything at all. It was just so bad. So, things with Earthquake 3 didn't really start kicking off until about 4.5 years ago. 5 years ago, maybe. And it still had the 18 426 tires on it. And horribly underpowered, but it was a big truck and it was fun. It was just a big mud truck, but I wanted a proper monster truck, so I set out to make all the improvements possible to make it a real stage 1 monster truck. Well, I could only do events as far as I could drive the truck, which was here in Sparta or around the shop. Once I got it up on 66s, I would get cars from the tow yard that was next door to my old shop, and I would practice any chance I got crushing cars. And as soon as I got comfortable with it, then I started doing displays at first, and then I started doing exhibitions with it, and then when the truck got to be a little bit more reliable, I started trying to get gigs with it. Well, I've gone through evolution of haulers also, because it's really, really difficult to get a monster truck around on a car trailer, and I tried. You can see this old U-Haul truck I retrofitted with a bed so I could put the tires on the bed and then pull the truck behind me, and that kind of worked, but boy, that truck was not happy with me for trying that. So we got a bigger trailer. We traded that truck and trailer for the 40-foot pintle hitch trailer. Well, then I needed something else to pull it with. So I sold I forget how I wound up with the money, but I couldn't just fork out the money for Mungo, my blue hauler. So I wound up driving all the way to Kentucky. I jumped in Mungo. Never saw the truck other than in a couple of pictures, but Joe Nichter, the guy I got it from, swore up and down it would make it back. And he was right, it did. And boy, does that truck run. For as ugly as it was, that truck runs. To this day it runs. It just doesn't stop. So that's why Mungo got parked. That, and I wound up upgrading again to a different truck and trailer. So it's not important enough to have a truck that's dependable. You got to be able to have dependable transportation. And along that line, our latest upgrade is to this enclosed trailer and our new hauler. And we just got this a couple of months ago. I've been using it, and let me tell you how much I love this truck. It is a 97 Volvo. It's got a C13 Cat with a 13 speed. The air conditioning works. The Jake brake works. It's got good tires on it. The brakes work. There's nothing wrong with the engine. As you can see, it used to be a wide load truck, but it never really got worked very hard because it hauled fiberglass tanks. Those big underground fiberglass tanks. In fact, it's only registered for 54,000 pounds. So the hardest this thing worked was to battle wind resistance. But now we have that truck and our enclosed drop frame trailer, and we've been trying this year to get everything situated to where it's easy to work with. So we put the tire crane in there, and we have our new monster jack and our 1,000 horsepower toolbox. Pretty cool pit cart. And you may be wondering, well, all that stuff costs money. It does. It does indeed. But all the materials to make that stuff are relatively inexpensive, and you can buy it in stages. The monster jack, I built that myself. There's about $1,200 worth of materials in it. So you get it a little at a time, wheel and deal for stuff, trade for stuff, and weld it all together. Voila, a monster jack. If you take pride in what you do, you have nice equipment. And that's a pretty cool jack. Same with the pit cart. When we moved into this property, that was a 2-foot by 4-foot Harbor Freight rolling cart, and it was just sitting out back with 4 flat tires. Along with that was an 8-foot table that they used for gardening. It was made out of 2x2 angle iron. Well, one Father's Day, Harbor Freight was having a special on the toolbox there on the left side. So I went up and bought that toolbox. I cut apart the 2x2 angle table, and that's the frame for that. I use the cart for the wheels. In fact, the bottom of that is still the cart. If you look up underneath, I don't know if you can see it, but that is still the Harbor Freight cart. I just built everything onto it. And then a sheet of 18 gauge sheet metal is 60 bucks. That sticker was 10 bucks. And the paint I had laying around. And then 4 tubes for the tires. If you build it all yourself, you can have nice stuff. The tires, I traded the 18 426s straight across for the 66s. Now they're old, but they hold air. Well, they hold air for a little while anyway, but that's enough. That's all I need. And little by little, as I can afford it, I fix stuff, I upgrade stuff, and I make it right. And then pretty soon, I have a pretty nice operation running. And I take care of everything that I build. You know, I built that jack. I don't throw it around. I'm careful when I use it. I don't want to scratch it. I built that pit cart. I take care of it when I use it. I don't want to scratch it. If you keep stuff nice, it's easy to keep stuff nice. It's a little bit harder to fix stuff when it's jacked up. So once you get it nice, keep it that way. That's not that hard. But anyway, that's our hauler. And I'm going to take you around and show you the little shop. I have 2 shops here on the property. I'm going to show you the little shop where all the welding and painting happens. So this is the driveway, and right now, if you see these 2 trucks here, that is the next project. I'm supposed to, the black truck was burned and the white truck is rotted out, so I have to make one nice truck out of the 2. But the white truck is sitting where Earthquake and Danger Ranger were built, right there in the driveway. Why? Because they don't fit in the garage. Because this is my little garage that I work out of. So what happens when it rains? Well, I get wet. Simple as that. And in here, believe it or not, this is clean. Because you should have seen the shambles it was before I cleaned up. We just got done resealing rock crawler axles, so we had the axles out and all apart. And in the back here, that's my heater straight ahead. My welder and battery charger and little workbench. And the set of tools that belong in this shop. Now there is a set of tools in this garage, there is a set of tools in the trailer, and there is a set of tools in the main shop. So trying to keep all that straight is a bit of an undertaking. And you would think that with 3 sets of tools I'd never have to walk anywhere and get something. Except I do. Every day. Because you always have that one tool that's over there in the main shop, and you're out in the trailer, so you got to walk back and forth. Yeah, it's a headache. But anyway, that's something we got to deal with. And there's some drop metal and extra pieces and round tube for whatever we're going to do. This here is the spare engine for Earthquake. Eventually that will have something else done to it. We're not going to give that secret away. And my 2-stage air compressor that has spent the last 30 years in my dad's shop. When he passed away last year, I got it. Still going strong. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, out here is the really interesting thing. That is the main shop, and if it looks strange, that's because this is the old Sparta train station. That's right. The tracks didn't go through here. After the railroad closed down, my wife's great-great-grandfather bought it, jacked it up, stuck it on logs, and had a mule team drag it from where it was sitting to here. And that was back in the late 30s, early 40s. So how cool is that? My shop is a train station. So let's go ahead and take a look in there. Now if you see a lack of employees, that's because I'm by myself. If the floors need swept, I do it. If the toilets need cleaned, I do it. If something needs built, I do it. And this here is my parts room and spare equipment. It's kind of dark in here, but you get the idea. So if you have a dent side Ford, and I say dent side meaning 73 to 79 Ford, chances are I have parts for it. But anyway, this is the old freight room to the train station. And through that door, that was facing the street, you would load in all of your dry goods, livestock, whatever you were going to ship by train, and then it would go out the door we came in onto the train. It's pretty cool. And here we're passing through the door to the office, and here's the bumpers that I make, the old school Warn winch bumpers. And then my Wall-O hardware. I also rebuild carburetors for people, so I have a few for parts. Speaking of which, I have to build a 2-barrel for somebody. And then drill press and milling machine. The toolbox for this shop. Some of Dad's old electronic equipment. And here's my new press brake. That will bend a 30-inch piece of 1/8-inch steel without a problem. Because before I had that, which I built, it was a real pain to make those bumpers. Anyway, that's just a Harbor Freight 20-ton press that I made all new middles for, and then made the dies for the press part. And it works amazingly well. And here's my sheet metal brake. It's a finger brake, so if I got to bend a box or something like that, I can do that. And then my lathe. This is actually my grandfather's lathe. My dad got it when my grandfather passed away, and now that my dad's gone, I have it. There is no money in the world to get that out of my fingers. Anyway. And then I have a bead roller, the shrinker stretcher for doing radiuses and sheet metal. I have the tubing roller. That's how you make real big radiuses in either square tubing or round tube. It's set up for 1x1 square tube right now. And of course all the normal stuff. Torch. Here's my tubing bender for doing roll cages. English wheel. I'm not very proficient at it, but I have used it. I have made parts with it, and I'm getting there. Parts washer, chop saw and cut table. Belt sander down here on the end. And my buddy. This is where we keep Earthquake. Something new that's really obvious for this year is the wheelie bar. We got rid of the ag bumper and built a wheelie bar for it. And the main reason for that is I didn't really like the looks of the ag bumper because it was like 18 inches below the original bumper. And with the jack, the new Monster jack, the handle would hit the ag bumper when the truck was all the way down with the transport tires on it. So I changed it to the wheelie bar, and now I can use the jack without a problem and worrying about beating up my knuckles. So now we're down here in the bay with Earthquake. Like I said, this is where I keep it. This used to be a horse stable, and the back wall here, when we moved in, that was all rotted and decaying and actually blowing in the breeze. So where this back door is here, that was a big open archway that the horses could walk in and out of. So I closed it in, put the door there, rebuilt this wall, and then sealed it off to where it's actually a usable bay now. The other thing was this floor was on a pretty decent slope, so I had to dig out about 2 feet on this end, and then at the other end I had to add about 1 foot, and it's pretty level now. But underneath the truck, and you can still kind of see it, where this curb is, that was actually the foundation, because above that, you can see where I closed in the wall. That was a room that went all the way across, and it was about 4 feet off of the floor. And the reason that was like that was because under it was a hog feeding trough that Tiff's great-great-grandfather put in there. And he did that so he could just walk into the room and feed the hogs without having to deal with the hogs. So it worked out great for him. I needed the room, so we took that room out, cut out the wall, and pretty much the entire wall in the end now is the barn doors to get the truck in and out. And I don't know if you can see them back there, but that whole big wall is 2 barn doors. There. And I had friends come in and help me raise those doors because I think it's 5 foot by 11 foot each door. That's heavy. It's real heavy. So anyway, this is where we work. This is it. We have a little 4-wheeler here. That's our pit bike when we go to shows. And it's, 2.5 miles from the pits to the hot pits. Jump on that. If we got to take the battery charger or whatever, fuel, it's got a rack front and rear. Throw it on there, run it out. Because we tried the walking 1/4 mile from pit to pit, and yeah, that ain't happening. It's not glamorous. It's not like the big shops. I don't have a bunch of money and a bunch of trucks. But everything I have, every penny I make, every deal I swing, every trade I do goes to the monster truck. If you decide to get in this, I'm all for it. The more the merrier. You can't lead if there's nobody following you, like Dave Radzira says. Stick with it. Go all in. I decided, because I had other project cars, I had other things I wanted to do. In order for me to make this work, I had to go all in. I sold the daily driver that I loved, that I had for 10 years. And I built that whole truck from the ground up and sold that so I could buy a hauler. There is no halfway. Like Mr. Miyagi said, either Kayate do yes or Kayate do no. Kayate do guess so, just like grape. Same thing with monster trucks. It's a bad impersonation, but you get the idea. You're either in it or you're not. If you're halfway in it, you're just going to get run over. That's all there is to it. So commit, build you a truck. Let's get some shows together. I got one more thing to show you, and that's the boneyard out back. Okay, here we are in what I call the north field of our house. Obviously, it's the field facing north. Check it out. We have from that fence all the way down that fence row, all the way across that tree line and fence row, pretty much where the grass stops is the north field. Now, the field beyond that, where all the grass is growing and the hay is growing, that's ours too. That's just the west field. Speaking of old equipment, there's Mongo. Now, I sold this truck 1.5 years ago to a fella in Florida, and I said, take your time. I understand you live in Florida, so it'll be here when you get here. Well, boy, did he take me at my word, because it's 1.5 years and it's still here. But I told him that the time is now to come get it. A couple of spare 5 tons just in case. What's that peeking out behind there? That looks like a 71 Mustang. Whatever could I do with that? Anyway, Mungo's still here. Still a great running truck. I bet you I could have. I haven't looked at that truck since October of last year. I bet you if I charge the batteries it would light right off. It's a great running truck. Here is my crew cab. Not for sale. I have special plans for that one. And then here, where I keep spare body parts that don't fit in my parts room. There's a cab. There's some bed liners if anybody needs one. In that overgrowth there is my old ag bumper. If anybody wants it, $100 and it's yours. There's the back of that Mustang. Anybody recognize this? Here's a hint for you. Yep, some crazy jeweler got all kinds of excited at Bigfoot Open House and rolled his truck over, so we had to put it back together for him. It's all good. It was a fun, well, it's always fun running a monster truck. It's never fun wrecking one, but that's part of the game. You know, you drive a monster truck, stuff's gonna break. Everybody says when I, lose the axle out of my truck, or it doesn't run right and it shuts off, or I break something, throw pieces out of the truck. Oh, I bet you're mad. No, it's monster trucking. If I thought that would never happen, I would have packed up a long time ago. It just happens. It's part of the game. You fix it and drive on. So there we are. That is the world headquarters of Shaker Racing. This is where we live. This is where we work. This is where all the cool stuff gets built. Not very fancy, is it? Everything about this is sheer will and determination. Like I said, I do this 100% by myself. I pay for it by doing work for other teams, work for other people. I build parts for other trucks. I restore other vehicles. Whatever it takes to get Earthquake in the trailer and down the road, that's what I do. Anybody can do this. It takes a very high level of commitment and determination and perseverance, because I'm here to tell you, after the first year, you're going to want to run as fast as you can away from this disaster. And what keeps me going is going to the shows, meeting up with the other teams that are like my family, my second family. Firing up the trucks. Driving the trucks is fun. What's more fun than driving the trucks is seeing that 6-year-old kid that's seeing the trucks in person for the first time, and their big wide eyes and their big smile. Man, that's it. If you do it for any other reason, you're wasting your time. It's for the 40-year-old fans that remember these trucks back in the day. I even had a guy come up and knock on Earthquake's fender, and it didn't bother me because I knew what he was doing. He looked at me surprised and he said, "That's a real truck." I said, "Yes, it is." To see the nostalgia come washing over somebody like that when they see Earthquake or another old school truck, and then see me perform. And I can't fly as high or as far as the new trucks, but I'm working on it. The safety stuff I put into Earthquake, the suspension that I put under Earthquake, it's not nitro shocks. Of course it isn't. But I have driven a modern truck before, and between the two, they take off and land exactly the same. No difference at all. The big difference is with the modern truck, I fly higher and farther. but the takeoff feels the same, the landing feels the same. Power feels quite a bit different. When I put more horsepower in Earthquake, I'm sure that'll all change because I'll have the ability to go higher and farther. And when I come down from higher and farther, I'm sure the landing will feel different. But for now, I'm happy with where I'm at. I can put on a show. The fans seem to like it. So that's where we are. That is Earthquake and Shaker Racing in a nutshell. A big nutshell, but yeah, there you go. So, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ask away. If you have a question, just ask me. I'll be happy to answer it. If you would like to see us run, tell your favorite promoter. Doesn't do any good to tell me. I would love to run. I would run every day if I could. But the promoter has to hire me to do the shows. So, if you want to see me at an event, call that promoter and say, hey, what about getting Earthquake there? And just bug the promoters. Maybe we'll start this old school movement rolling again. But stay safe, everybody. I'm glad you're hanging out with me. I hope I wasn't too boring this time. This one kind of ran long. But we'll see everybody down the road.